It's a great day to be a Coyote. Welcome, Coyote Nation, to another episode of Back to Pack Podcast, where we are going to be bringing you all of your favorite games, memories, and of course, discussion with our fellow Coyotes. As a disclaimer, we have no affiliation to the University of South Dakota. This is a podcast ran by fans for fans. The ideas and comments do not represent the university. Our opinions are our own. Be sure to find us on Twitter at BackToPackSD. With that being said, let's jump in. Well, I tell you what, going from you and I and Mitch talking, trying to figure out, do we just take a break for a week? We got a lot of stuff lined up. Not really having a topic to talk about. This sure turned into a big deal.
Right. So yeah, went from gosh, what are we going to talk about tonight? Do we want to do a show tonight? What should we
Even
do?
worth
And then all
it.
of a sudden Twitter's blowing up and my text messages are blowing up and people are calling me during the day, and yeah, we got some explosive news, and I'm sure anybody who's on here probably already knows, but Bob has retired as of today.
Mm-hmm. Step
So
down after an unbelievable full-time career, but I'd say a Hall of Fame career even at USD alone.
yeah, I mean it's I'd say shocking, right? I think that's the word most people are using. It's kind of a shocking,
Yeah.
um, but just with the timing and uh, everything, the way things were kind of trending, it felt like we were really hitting the off season, right? Like the portal was dying down a little bit. You kind
Mm-hmm.
of knew who was coming and going. Other coaches had moved around within the conference and within the country, and so this is a big surprise, but. So kind of hard to digest right now. We of course wish Bob the best, and he's been monumental. I would probably say, if not the most impactful coach to our program, especially in the Division
Yeah.
One era. So it's a lot, right? Change is tough when it is, but luckily the plan we have in place, I feel really good about.
Yeah. And I think that's really what separates us from a lot of programs that are dealing with coaches leaving. Retirement.
Hmm.
Definitely, it makes for a smoother transition,
No doubt.
but B, having the succession plan timed out properly, planned out, it worked out. I know, I've talked to you and Mitch in the background a little bit, and we all kind of had a feeling that Nielsen's time was getting close to the end.
Hmm.
It's okay. He is old.
Yeah.
He's we looked at his career. He has been coaching for 32 years. He spent 42 years of his life around football.
Hmm.
I don't even know what 42 years looks like on
Yeah.
this earth.
Yeah.
So, like, to enamor yourself in that much football that long, yeah, kudos to him for having a tenured career like that and going out on his terms.
Yeah, and that's really you bring up a good point too, is that 9 times out of 10, when you're making a coaching change, it's not a ride into the sunset situation like this one is, right?
Yeah.
It's either your team's not performing and your administration thinks it's time for a new coach, or your coach is leaving, right? Because another program has scooped them up.
Hmm.
There's all sorts of different ways that it usually goes, and this is one of those unique situations where it's not. And like you said, with Johansen in place, obviously taking over as head coach, that seems to be one that's been, to your point, in the works, right? Especially with his title as associate head coach for what, from 2022, yeah, 22 to current, and now
Hmm.
head coach. So it's not like this, oh my gosh, who are we going to pull up? This plan's been in place for a while, and um, I guess the only thing that's maybe a little bit unpredictable on it is the timing aspect, like we've talked about, is when that happens during the season. So you and I have some ideas we can talk about that too, of what we think the timing caused that. We're just speculating in full transparency. We know nothing
Yeah.
more than anybody else, of course, at this time, but just a few kind of nuggets that we were talking about. So
Yeah, it does feel weird. It felt like it was falling in line. I was very close to calling it. I said that when that time comes, Johansen would be the head coach.
mhm.
My associate head coach idea that I had is now currently coaching at Fresno State. So
Right,
I don't.
right.
we don't have it all figured out by any means, but it's gonna be fun to speculate on who's gonna become the defensive coordinator
Hmm.
in this. I have seen head coaches do side of the ball as well. I don't like it per se, and I do think we have some fantastic people to pick from on the defensive side of the ball.
Hmm.
But I know that will be something for a later episode. The thing I do want to touch on for Coach Nielsen before we pass on and start talking about Johansen. He spent 9 years at USD,
Yeah.
and we all talk about Coach Glenn bringing us into the D1 era. He did. He brought us from uh, up to D1, but with Nielsen, he took us to new levels and he established
Hmm.
USD as I think is going to be a perennial power now at this point. In his time, it was up and down. Heck, we all thought he was going to get fired 2 years ago. And then he goes
Hmm.
on back to back Missouri Valley Coach of the Year runs.
Hmm.
He ends his career with 53 and 48 record at USD.
Hmm.
Now, we were joking about this before it started. I already said he's coached for 32 years. His football record in his lifetime is 239 to 128, but he's been coaching for so long, he even has one tie on his record. Just just for a reference for everyone. So like it's okay to say that it was his time to walk away from the program as well.
Hmm.
But his time will not be forgotten.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point too. Is that yes, Joe Glenn brought us into the D1 era through that transition, which, in my opinion, uh, that's the hardest thing programs have to go through, right? If you go from that move to D2 to D1 or whatever you move, that period where you're moving is so difficult. I unfortunately, that's where you and I spent some of our time in college, is in that transition year.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it's not fun for the fans. It's not fun for the program. It's difficult, right? So I've always said that before too. That Joe Glenn, he he's always at the top of my list as impactful coaches because he also did it just out of the love of the game for USD for us. But when you talk
Yep.
about once that transition was over, that's really when the coaching Division 1 kind of measuring stick comes out. And like you said, for a while it was up and down. We had some tough seasons where you only had 4 or 5 wins, right? But I think
Yep.
what you just said is exactly what I was thinking as well, is that it feels like now that Bob has gotten us to a level with back-to-back seasons of 10 wins, 11 wins, deep runs in the playoffs, really
Hmm.
feels like the standard's been set now to where we should be a contender, in my opinion, or we should be on the national stage of FCS football consistently. So, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of fans feel that way too, right? I think for us to be uh, outside of the playoff bubble, those days are gone, in my opinion. And I
Yep.
don't think there's any reason that we should think that those days are ever going to be coming back just based off of what we've built in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I think this transition is timed out really well too, because I think not only are we going back to back double digit wins, I think next year is a softball in for another double digit win as well with what we have returning, especially on the offensive side. You already
Yeah,
saw my depth chart that I was building up, and
yeah.
it was pretty easy to make the offensive side of the ball. But before we completely shift over, I'm gonna hit you guys with the best stat that Nielsen is walking away with.
Oh boy.
In his time, he is officially 9-0 on D days.
Hey, there you go. Well done. Well done.
Yep.
It's a
So
smart. That's a smart move. That's the way to go. That's what I would do if I was head coach.
it would have been impressive to get that 10th win. I know I have a pretty good feeling. I can't remember who it is, but I feel like it was a softball of a D days game this year. But 10-0 on D days sounds
Yeah,
really really good.
that does. That does. That's some big shoes to fill for Johansen there, right? I mean, he'll.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure somebody at some point will remind him of that. I'm sure it'll come sooner than later too. That like, hey, we haven't seen a D-Day's loss in quite some time, so don't start now.
Exactly. But now, yeah, I think we can flip it over to Coach Johansen
Yeah.
as he uh, transitions into the head coach, which congratulations to him.
Hmm.
We've talked about our concerns for where he could potentially have ended up
Hmm.
if he wasn't given the keys at USD. I have a pretty solid good feeling that he was asked to interview for the UND job. Would not surprise me in the least. I do think there was a lot of people that were interested, or a lot of teams interested in him.
Yeah, I think that's again I have no inside knowledge or anything like this, so this is truly speculation. But I think you're
Yep.
spot on with that. I think what Travis has done at USD in the last 2 seasons by itself is enough to where people would be interested, or they'd be crazy not to be interested. So to think
Uh-huh.
that Travis hasn't been approached here in the last 2 seasons for sure, I think you'd kind of have your head buried in the sand a little bit. And to your point too, I think when that head search or that head coaching search for UND was going on, his name kept coming up. And so whether it actually got to an interview, all those things, the fact of the matter is people notice, right? And like even for
Hmm.
just some talking heads to say, hey, this would be a person. That's kind of how the ball gets rolling a lot of times on these, right? It's like you start to hear the chatter, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, it's the chatter, and then it's an interview and things like that. So um,
Yep.
again, I think I'm super excited, and like you said earlier, it seems like this has kind of been the plan long term for anybody who's followed USD football. I think, like we said, back in 2022, he was named associate head coach. I remember at the time, everybody kind of went, "Wait a second, does that mean that like Bob's getting ready to leave?" Like that kind of actually got some people worried at the time when they named him
Yep.
that, because it was kind of a unique position that you
Title.
don't necessarily yeah, unique title, right? That you don't
Hmm.
necessarily put on somebody unless you kind of are thinking, okay, we're going to do this. So for me and you and the fans like us, I don't think it's super shocking to see that. I think we would actually be the opposite. Had Bob retired and they named somebody else other than Johansen, that would have shocked the heck out of me.
Hmm. Yeah. No. I. I think this plan's been, I'd say, permanent marker written down
Hmm.
since that title was handed to him. But it's not that he didn't earn it by any means. His
Right, right.
his record on the defense for USD has been phenomenal, but his time at Grandview
Hmm.
was unbelievable.
Right.
He was there for 6 seasons, and he went 61-11.
Right, right. It's an insane winning record, no doubt.
Exactly, and he won the national title with them at 14
Hmm.
and 0. He finished every season in the top 15 in NAIA rankings,
Hmm.
and 4 of the 6 were actually top 10.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So,
that's even the track record. We talked about it too. I think again, I'm doing a lot of, reminiscing, but I remember at the time when Johansson came in, making a jump from NAIA to FCS football. I think people were kind of going, "Oh boy, I hope there's not like a
mhm,
learning curve here." So,
yeah,
uh, and honestly, it didn't really feel like that. And now, it's easy to look now because these last 2 seasons, we've had a top 5 defense in the whole country. Uh,
mhm,
and then the most impressive stat, which I told you before we got on here, but the thing that blows my mind, and I didn't even realize it till really today, but he's also produced back-to-back Missouri Valley Defensive Players of the Year in Grace and Mogensen, which
yeah,
you think about the good defensive players that have played in the Missouri Valley in the last 2 seasons. Uh, you think, in particular to NDSU, SDSU, USD, like that's a feat. We're talking about guys
mhm.
who've gone on to the league, so including Mogensen, right? And uh, we know Grace is off to Kentucky, which um, that's one that
Congratulations.
right, congratulations. But my guess would be his next step would be the NFL as well. So yeah,
Yep.
Johansson has this phenomenal track record with player development. I don't think that looks any different moving forward.
Well, and here's the thing: had he been the defensive coordinator for next season, I think he might have a third.
Yeah, right, right. I
Because
think,
Gary Bryant's a little, I'd say, pissed off from the record
yeah,
awards that
yeah,
were handed out to linebackers this year.
right. I think we can all, yeah, I think we all agree, and I think most folks will have, Gary Bryant circled on their list as defensive player of the year candidates even before the season starts, right? So
Hmm.
there's, I think you're right. There's an opportunity for the Yotes and Johansson to produce 3 in a row, and that would be just unreal. So no, it's a weird spot to be in. It's very rare that you have a coaching change and you're not feeling bad about what's going on. Like I said earlier,
No,
it's usually because something's going wrong, somebody's leaving, somebody's getting fired, right? So
exactly.
all things considered, I feel pretty good about what's going on.
Yeah, and I saw Twitter was fun today. Seeing some of these non-USD FCS accounts tweeting
Hmm.
about it. My favorite, somebody said something along the lines of, "Why can't USC have anything nice? Two hot seasons in a row, and then they come to this, and they were just getting started." And I had to throw. My comment was very comical because I said something along the lines of, this is uh, a retirement, not a firing, not a new going to a new job.
Hmm.
We got the succession plans figured out. It's not like he took his entire coaching staff with him, all of the stud players, and took them to a state like Washington or something.
Right?
I mean, who would do that?
I have no idea. I wouldn't be a part of that.
Yeah, that just sounds awful. But yeah, and Yote fan brings up a great point though too. Just as a whole, I'm trying to think of the fourth one now, but we got UNI, SDSU, USD, and trying to figure out who the fourth one is. But I know it's one of those Illinois or Indiana teams that did it. So it's gonna look interesting next season
Yeah,
with the Missouri
yeah,
Valley as a whole.
yeah. I think the Missouri Valley, it'll be interesting. A lot of movements.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of
UND.
new.
Thank you, Seth.
Yes,
Yep.
UND. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was reading through the comments as you were saying that. Is the were you talking about the combined 1 year of head coach experience between the Dakota schools? Because somebody threw that out today as well. I don't know if you saw that.
Yep. I
So
saw
that's
that.
yeah. So that was another one that kind of cracked me up actually when they said, oh, now the Dakota schools have a combined 1 year head coach experience between the four
That's
schools. So
wild.
that is a
And the Dakotas got young, and if that
in
doesn't
a
give you
hurry.
a hint at, yeah, obviously in a hurry, but got young, and that's definitely a show of weird focus on NIL and the transfer portal
Hmm.
and what it takes to be successful in this new era. Having young coaches as they transition in through this is going to be helpful.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think it'll be tremendous to see how all the Dakota schools who are primarily, I guess we're biased, right? We live in this part of the country, but you kind of expect the Dakota schools to lead the Missouri Valley, right, when it comes
Uh-huh.
to success. And so it seems like we're kind of going all in on this FCS environment, which I'm a big fan of because what's going on in the P4, you know, world is something that
Mhm.
I'm not real sure I want to be involved with based off of where we're at. So I think it's good. I think it's interesting. It'll make for a super fun 2025 season. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, yeah. It should be fun. I could have swore UND lost um, Rumfo, but I know they get him back next season.
Hmm.
Outside of that, USD, besides NDSU, obviously returning their head coach, it does feel like USD is primed to be one of the top two again in the Dakotas, even with the transition in the coaching world.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting too, and I'm sure a few folks here have seen it, but there's already some early, the way too early polls, right? And I think a lot of people agree with that. They see, NDSU and USD at the top as right. We're both bringing back a majority of our team, and again, the SDSU fans will be barking at us, I'm sure, about this, but there's just too much
Mhm.
uncertainty to really feel like you can throw SDSU in the top one or two spot. They've had
Oh
success,
yeah,
but the the changes are just too much there, I think. So I
Mhm.
think the Missouri Valley's as wide open as it's been in probably a long time, and that's always exciting. And there's always going to be a
yeah.
surprise team, except for this year. For whatever reason, there was no surprise team this year, but it seems like
Missouri
there's always
State
one.
was.
Right, I
I'd
guess
say
yeah.
Missouri State was surprising,
They
but
were they're just ineligible, so it felt like you just kind of was like
exactly,
an
you
asterisk
forgot
next to
about
it,
them,
right? You
and we
did.
never played them.
Never played them. They weren't eligible. So no, you're exactly right. But there's going to be a there's going to be an Illinois State. There's going to be a Southern Illinois. Somebody's going to come in and be in the mix as well. So Uh,
Mhm.
I'm excited. We're sickos, of course, so we're always looking forward to it, but it can't get here soon enough.
Hey, yeah, adding a little more fuel to what I chase after, considering it's mostly recruiting that I enjoy in the off season. Now, now I get to watch coaching changes too, and it
There
makes
you
it
go.
fun. You know, before we drop off, obviously this wasn't going to be a long podcast
Hmm.
slash episode because we just want to cover this news. It's something that is way too important to the university and the football program that we couldn't not talk about it. But I do want to say, you know, if for some reason Coach Nielsen is watching this or listens to this, I truly thank you for everything you did for USD, whether it was in the beginning and uh, building us up, giving us the Streveler era. That was fantastic. It just felt like you cared so much about the program. You put your best foot forward in every season, every game. We know some seasons didn't go the way they were supposed to,
Hmm.
but without coach, USC doesn't look like this and where we're at. I doubt we're making a podcast.
Yeah, seriously, you're exactly right. It's a lot of people have said it. He's Bob the Builder, right? He
Yeah.
he comes into a program and he builds, and that's exactly what he's done for us. And one thing that's kind of crazy to think about looking back hindsight is that let's not forget that we took him from another Missouri Valley school when he was at Western Illinois. And I bring
Eh,
that up. I bring that up because it's me and my buddy's favorite or our favorite joke is, we took their Bob, just like the old South Park episode, they took our job. Well, we took their Bob. But the thing about that makes it so crazy is that at that time, I think Bob understood the vision and saw the potential that USD had, because
mhm,
otherwise a movement like that is relatively lateral and it can be kind of difficult, right? To kind of justify, okay, I'm going from Western, which he had just come off a playoff appearance at Western.
yep,
He saw, I think, like I said, I know he's talked about it before. He saw what USD was building. He saw the vision, although, yes, we were just coming out of basically the D2 era. I think he saw it and he saw it all the way through, right? And to me,
mhm.
9 years flew by. That was kind of actually another comment that when somebody said 9 years,
Wild.
I'm like 9. I'm like, no, it's been like 5 or 6, right? But no,
Mhm.
it's been 9 years, and so it's
I I got some bad news for you, old man. Streveler was 7 years ago. Actually, 8 now. It'll be 8 this
yeah,
fall.
right, right. Yeah, it is. That's always like the measuring stick. I'm like, man, 2017. Like, wait, that wasn't that long ago. Oh, wait. So,
Uh-huh.
uh, we'll say in the comments here, somebody else made a good comment as well. The budget situation in Illinois at Western Illinois too was one
Mhm.
where I believe at the time we thought maybe Western Illinois wasn't going to exist as a college, let alone a football
Yep.
program there for a while. So, uh, yeah, but no, like you said, I mean, huge shout out to Bob. So glad we did the Bob out this year
Yeah.
as,
You know,
as well.
I will
So
say this too, you bring it up. I'm not opposed to having the discussion about our home game that's closest to the 28th as one last Bob out because I had an
yeah,
absolute blast with it,
yeah, it
just
would
as an
be
ode to him.
absolutely, it'd be fun. I have a feeling that the coaches would be all in for that if we wanted to do a
Mhm.
Bob out. So there we go.
Or when it
Let's not put it out yet. I think there still might be maybe we got one more Bob out in us.
exactly. Well, and if we don't do a to that one, I think it would have been the drink game this season.
Hmm.
We definitely got a Bob out for his Hall of Fame
Yeah,
game.
there you go. Absolutely.
Mhm. But yeah, no, it was, I mean, absolute fantastic career. I'm so excited for what Johansen can do. Young energy into a program that's already, I don't even want to say on the climb, but peaking at the
Yeah.
exact right time.
Hmm.
It, it's perfect and sad at the same time. You can be happy and sad at the same time on this one
Right.
because you're right. But yeah, I don't have anything else that I need to add on this.
No, I don't. The only other comment I was going to make is, and you kind of just said it with talking about where the program's at right now, is that for us as fans, and I know folks internally at USD, the expectations are going to stay the same, right? I mean,
Yep.
that's the fun part about this, and I know Johansen would be the first person to tell you that too, right? I think nothing changes from expectations like it does typically from coach to coach. Next year, I expect USD to be in the mix for a national championship, and that's just the reality of what we've kind of built here. So that part makes it extra exciting. Like you said, can't be more grateful for what Bob did for the program, and future is bright as well.
Exactly. All right, perfect. Well, I think we should call it a night.
Yeah,
I will say it, even with a legendary coach walking away, it's always a great day to be a Coyote.
true, true. Great day to be a coyote, and as always, go Yotes.
Go Yotes.